Hey everyone, welcome to the E2 Effective Elders podcast. Visit us at e2elders.org and please share this good word with others.
Hey everybody, how grateful we are to CDF Capital for their outstanding partnership with E2 Effective Elders, that they have been investing in elders across the country and around the world, and they make our podcast possible. Today, we continue in our pursuit of a good word all year long. 2022, we're looking at one good word after another each month, and the month of June is that of patience. And today, we're going to speak specifically about patience in suffering, and somebody who can speak powerfully into that is my good friend and brother in Christ, Kent Hawkins. Kent, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks again for the invite.
You betcha, buddy. People, I want you to know that Kent is the lead minister of Cornerstone Christian Church in Vero Beach, Florida. Kent's there suffering just minutes from the Atlantic Ocean. Kent, how do you get that done? There you are, just a stone's throw away from that sand and surf. Are you doing okay down there?
Yeah, we are suffering through the sunshine.
Yeah, somebody's got to do that for Jesus. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your ministry, also maybe your ministry path, how you got to where you are today, okay?
Yeah. I was blessed to be born and raised in a Christian home. My dad's a part-time minister, so I'm a PK. My mom played the piano. My sisters and I sang in the little country churches my dad served at. So truly, we are the prototypical church family. I felt call at a week of camp at Bond Christian Service Camp in Mulberry, Illinois, to make my decision. My dad immersed me, made my decision also at the same camp to enter full-time ministry, went straight from high school into college at Lincoln Christian College, and I've been now serving for 42 years.
Wow.
I've been blessed to be married to my wife, Kim, for 41 plus years, and we have 2 grown children and 4 granddaughters.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. And now you've been lead minister there at Cornerstone ever since her inception. Now, how many years has that been?
This fall, end of September, will be 23 years.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Now, tell us a little bit, we're going to hear words from you about patience and suffering, but what are your challenges in that regard right now? Help people understand your unique path and the challenge that you have in ministry and in life.
Again, I was born with extreme myopia, and I know people will say if they have glasses, I'm a -1, -2, I'm a -15. And besides that, I had a lazy eye. My right eye only had 5% vision. So life's always been a little bit more challenging. Again, it's not that it's been difficult, but it's been more challenging. Back in the 1980s, we tried a couple of experimental surgeries on the right eye, thinking, well, maybe they could do something, brand new procedures to enhance the use of that eye. It didn't work out. And so now I wear a cosmetic lens. So this right eye, I have no vision at all. And I always tell people, if you stand on the right side of me and get my attention, you're going to stand there a long, long time. But and then the left eye, again, has been okay. One thing that's intriguing, and that was when I was 10 years old, I was able to get contact lenses. And I was one of the very first people in the St. Louis area. My ophthalmologist, Dr. Hartstein, was kind of pushing that because he knew it would help me. And I remember telling my mom, it was the first time I saw leaves on a tree. They were a green blur or blob.
Wow.
Individual leaves. So it really was one of those, I would say, eye-opening situations that really did dramatically improve my life. And
and you were how old at the time?
I was 10 years old at that time.
Wow.
And so, generally speaking, for a good chunk of my teenage years, all the way through most of my adult life, I've been able to live a fairly normal life, driving, reading books, being able to see people's expressions on their faces. And although I will tell you, Gary, once in a while, not being able to see people's expressions on their faces can be a blessing.
You got a great attitude, buddy. So even now, though, do you have some limitations driving or What about when people email you, text you, things of that nature?
Let me just back up just a little bit here. 2010 is when I got diagnosed with two advanced things. And again, that's part of aging process, advanced glaucoma, and then also myopic macular degeneration. And so the doctors describe they say, you've lost all your center vision and you've lost all your peripheral vision. So now all I have is truly, if you took a ring off of your finger, my vision is not the interior or the exterior, it's just the ring itself. And so obviously that's difficult. And so a series of drops, regular visits. But because of that, you're right. I gave up driving in 2016. I tell you, that's one of the hardest things I've ever done because, I love to drive. It's my go-to music and just getting out on the road. Not a huge fan of the way my wife drives. We just drive differently. She drives safely, but we drive differently. And so, reading emails and looking at visual things has become certainly more of a challenge.
Yeah. Well, I've been there to Cornerstone many times. You're a very gifted musician, a vocalist, a guitarist. So you've certainly worked beyond that challenge, that handicap. Why don't you talk a little bit about, for example, you and the shepherds, the elders there at Cornerstone. How do you have a working understanding about this disability?
Yes. When I was diagnosed in 2010, I immediately came to them, let them know before I even let the congregation know, because I wanted them to be fully on board, fully aware of what was going on. And so we made an agreement then and have renewed it just about every 2 to 3 years. And that is that when my disability, visual disability, impedes the growth of the church, then it's time for us to have that conversation about either me stepping away or stepping back into a more of a part-time or a different role of some kind. And so I will seek to make that an easy transition for the guys and not one of those difficult questions where we've got to push you or urge you out of that position. I want to extend grace in that way to allow the guys to make it easy for them.
Wow, that's powerful. And why don't you help us a little bit? You can speak with all authority on this. The fact that for more than a decade, you've had this diagnosis, it's not going to improve. It's obviously worsened for you. How do you manage? Here's a question. How do you manage to continue serving as the lead minister of Cornerstone?
Well, there's really three things that are key. Number one, I have an amazing wife. And I know I sound like Wheel of Fortune when the contestants introduce their spouses out in the in the audience there. But Kim truly is my helpmeet in all things. She is the one who understands I need more time now to prepare and do lessons and messages. So I'm away from her more now than I would be otherwise. She's the one who takes me places and picks me up and makes sure that everything is running smoothly in my life. And again, she even puts up with my occasional complaining about her driving, but she is a wonderful, wonderful help. And I couldn't do it literally. I could not do it without her. The second thing that really is also key is technology. And I'm using one of those technologies now. I'm just going to turn it around so everyone can kind of see it.
Wow. Okay.
But, between the smartphones and being able to have verbal descriptions rather than visual, I have a 32-inch screen here and at home. And then this device called the Galaxy View, which is touchscreen. I can make the font large. I can read still and still be able to teach and preach, do memorials, have Bible studies, with our shepherds, meet with them. So the technology, I've really thought that 20 years ago, I wouldn't be able to still be in ministry, but God's grace through technology has allowed me to keep on going. And then the third part, Gary, is equally as important, and that is the church I serve. Having a long-term ministry is truly a blessing. The camaraderie that we have, the serving together. And I've often wondered that if I only served at a congregation 1 or 2 years and this diagnosis came up, if the congregation would be as compassionate, as gracious to me, because we didn't have that long-term relationship, but we do. And so it's kind of interesting that, since Kim is a full-time teacher, very often I have to get rides from people in the church. They'll take me to visit someone in the hospital, take me to someone's home. They'll take me to visit someone that I'm going to meet at Sonny's and have some table fellowship with. And it's their opportunity to serve me. And I've never found a lack of that. They are very willing. And it's interesting because of that years of camaraderie, the years I've been able to serve them, they are now serving me.
Serving you, right.
Yeah. And again,
that's powerful.
You and I know that most of the time guys would much rather be on the serving side than the being served side. But it's teaching me humility and allowing people to serve me. And that is a blessing indeed.
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, here's a second question. Do you have times of impatience or discouragement? And if so, what do you do in those moments?
I can be, I am more impatient and struggle more with impatience these days, just simply because of the lack of things that I'm able to do, or the fact that it takes me longer to do those things. And I throw a very good pity party. Usually invite friends, have cake and balloons and stuff. So it's an easy thing to do that. But then I'm reminded again of God's promises. I'm reminded of God's people. And there's three things that I always have to come back to. Number one, I'm not alone on this journey, Gary. There are other people who have walked down, and whether it's biblical examples or whether it's people that I know in my own life that I've known through the years, maybe they've journeyed down the path a little bit farther than I have, and they have died and they've gone to heaven. But I can learn a lesson from the journey that they have taken, and then hopefully apply some of the lessons that they've learned, to be able to use in my own life. There are so many of the examples when I think of Scripture, the different people, but those people teach me something. Not only am I not alone, but I don't know about you, but I love to serve. And so part of the way that I keep from being impatient or frustrated or discouraged is I keep busy. And
that's great.
I want to serve. I want to continue doing the work of the Lord for as long as and we know this psychologically. The more we can produce, the more productivity we can have, the more it helps us, our mental outlook on life. And so
absolutely.
Certainly don't want to sit around and just watch TV. And I'm reminded what Paul says in Philippians 3:14, where he says, I press on to the goal. And that's what I'm seeking to do. That it's not just though about self-interest, about keeping myself from becoming impatient and frustrated and discouraged, but it's that I believe I can still be a blessing to others in the same time. Yeah. And then there's one more thing, and that's the word compensate. And I know that's kind of an odd word, but it's not being compensated. It's that I'm learning to compensate. If my vision loss had happened like immediately, I'd just gone blind, it would have been a shock to my system. And I think I would have not handled that as well. But by the grace of God, and I know that's going to be strange to say, but by the grace of God, my vision decline has been gradual. And so I've learned how to compensate. I've learned by doing more verbal than visual. I've learned by increasing font size and the type of font. And I've learned by relying on other people and having to rely upon God more in my day-to-day walk with Him. Yeah. That's a humbling lesson, but it's a lesson that has taught me a great deal.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned this phrase twice now, so I'm going to bring up a third and final question. You've used the word or phrase biblical examples. So obviously, it's important to you. You've referred to it. You've referenced it twice. What biblical examples do you rely on to have patience when you're suffering?
Again, we could come up with dozens of them. Job's immeasurable sufferings, David's high and lows. Sometimes I think that David might have been bipolar. Reading his lament psalms,
I've never thought of that.
Will remind me again that he's gone that same journey. I could talk about Paul because I think possibly his disability might have been mental disability, and he was able, God's conversation, my grace is sufficient for you. And then, your power, God, is made perfect in my weakness. So I can use those, but my very favorite is the Old Testament life of Joseph. the favored son. He's hated by his brothers. He's sold into slavery. He rises up in Potiphar. He's accused of raping his wife. He's thrown in dungeon. He interprets dreams, but then he's forgotten, and he serves 2 more years in that dungeon. And his life had to be one of patience. Now, we've been going through this study with our Wednesday group right now. This is kind of a small group I'm leading, and we just finished it. But there's an interesting verse. I think it's in Acts chapter 7, verse 9, that speaks of Joseph. And it says, speaking of Joseph and his brothers, it says, and the patriarchs, that's Joseph's brothers, jealous of Joseph, they sold him to Egypt, but God was with him. And when you read Genesis 40 through 50, it uses an allusion or that exact phrase over and over and over. So I'm reminded that God was with Joseph. And we added another phrase during our Bible study. It's not biblical. Maybe it should be in the Bible, but it's something we added to the narrative. And that it's not just that God was with Joseph, but Joseph was with God. It was a reciprocal relationship, that there was love both ways. There was trust and loyalty both ways, that Joseph never, at least it's not recorded, he moaned or decried his difficulties in life. He just simply was faithful to him all along that journey. And that was proven again in his faithfulness, and just was a great, great individual and an example. So those times of impatience, I like to go back to Joseph and watch what he did. That's really a prime example from Scripture. And I would not have gone there first. When you make mention of Paul, and he speaks of, there was given me a thorn in the flesh, a messenger from Satan. I pleaded with him 3 times to take it away. And yet the Lord said, my grace is sufficient for you. That's where I would have gone first. So you've really helped unpack scriptural examples that could speak encouragement into your life. Well, Kent, we sure do want to thank you. If anybody has the chutzpah with which to speak into being patient in times of suffering, Kent Hawkins has that authority to do so. And we can't thank you enough for your sterling example as a servant of Jesus who stays the course. And you know what? I'm most sincere. You have an incredible attitude, one where you're bringing some joy, some levity, some happiness even into the midst of this. And that's got to be something that God has given to you, and it speaks volumes to us who see that in you. It's so easy to see Jesus in you, buddy. So easy. And I really do. Share one more thing. Yeah, of course. We all learn life's lessons, and over 40 plus years of ministry and just 60 plus years of life, we learn that through trials, sometimes we see the what God does in bringing some good from it right away. But my experience is that doesn't happen very often. That usually the lessons we learn are months, decades later on, that we have to be patient in the midst of those tough times to be able to eventually see the end results. But sometimes those why questions we ask are not going to be answered into eternity. And so in my particular situation, I still ask sometimes the why and would still love the miracle of healing. But right now, I realize that God is with me, and so I want to be with God. Yeah, that's great. That's a powerful word on which to end. So, Ken, thank you very much. And if people want to contact you, I know your email address pretty well, Kent at Cornerstone Christian, V as in Victor, B as in boy, VeroBeach.com. Kent at CornerstoneChristianVB.com. And I would encourage people, if they've got a question or two for you, just to drop you a note. Thank you, buddy. We're so grateful for our partnership with Cornerstone Christian Church. Blessings to you. You too, Gary. Thank you.